So, one more for this current collection is just a different way to speak about this, which is that really what I'm wanting to lead us to is unconditional forgiveness. Absolutely unconditional forgiveness. It's incredible when I talk about the amount of resentment I have carried in my life. A couple of years ago, I really figured out that resentment had really colored, influenced, and about eaten my life. And I think that at the end of the day, the resentment was because I couldn't allow myself, I didn't believe I could allow myself to admit that the trauma that I had felt was as big as it was to me. It was like it was this double bind, triple bind, quadruple bind. Nothing was right. Nothing was right. The trauma had frozen me. I couldn't admit that it was that big. I couldn't unfreeze myself. There was just layer and layer and layer. This hall of mirrors. I really see it these days as a hall of mirrors of judgment. And I understand that in our culture, we have huge stuff around forgiveness. Forgiveness being, I think, maybe the biggest thing that it seems is happens around it is that it makes the other person right. Well, even if that's true, which that doesn't happen to be what forgiveness is, but even if that were true, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Right? I mean, one of the quick, dirty tricks for getting past resentment is to just say to that other person that you might be arguing with, whether it's in real life or in your head, you may be right. Talk about opening up some space. What if you didn't have this death grip on, I can't possibly let you be right, I can't possibly be wrong? I mean, there are a million things to say about forgiveness. And what I have come to see this last few months has been when I have really seen that unconditional forgiveness is the magic. That's the magic piece. That is what brings you into this current moment so that you're right here, right now. Completely here without any story about what should be different here, where you should be, what else should be happening, without any blame, shame, judgment, justification, anything. You're just right here. And there's all kinds of magic that opens up around that. The timeline that you have felt you were living on, I'll just say me, the timeline that I felt that I was living in the middle of it, and the past stretched way back there and the future way out there, and here I was, and how was I going to get there from here? That actually has disappeared, and now I'm living in this, again, it's sort of like a sphere of nowness that includes everything. So when I want to forgive the person that I want to forgive, or the thing I want to forgive, or myself, it's all right here. There isn't any back there. There isn't any too late. It happens right now. I do it right now. It's right here, right now. And I can affect everything all the way back through time and all the way forward through time by forgiving right now, which is letting go of the story that there's anything wrong. I mean, it took everything in all of history to bring us to the place where we are. It took everything in all of history of the world to bring me to this place right here. I couldn't be here without every aspect of it. And so if I were to go back and say, well, I can forgive this and this and this, but I can't, that piece is unforgivable. That person is unforgivable. I'm unforgivable in that place. I mean, it's really crazy. And it's the place to acknowledge trauma. That what trauma is frozenness in the inability to forgive, the inability to let go, the inability to keep on moving, to just be fine in your life. That's what trauma creates, is a frozenness in the inability to forgive, the inability to let go. And that's why we deal with the trauma. That's why we use the tools that I'm going to give you, have given you, depending on whether you've watched them yet. That's why those matter. The trauma is physiological. You're physiologically, mind, body, and spirit get hardened into a position, frozen in place. And we just need to unfreeze that. We can do that. That is not so hard to do, it turns out. It's just not so hard to do. So that's the piece. And when you really get to 100% unconditional forgiveness, that is your 100% freedom in the world to be exactly who you are. And the thing is, when you are exactly who you are, and you're not resisting and creating ways of being that aren't really who you are, but you're being them, you don't even know why you're being them, but they're actually coming from this place of fighting the lack of forgiveness, fighting the anger, fighting, it's just this internal conflict, this incredible internal conflict that goes back to that collapse in the circle, the collapse and the overreaching. That creates this huge inner conflict. The unconditional forgiveness, just the conflict disappears. There's nothing to fight. Your sphere of wholeness becomes a beautiful place to be, and more you realize that you're actually the only one in there. That when you go into unconditional forgiveness, one of the big benefits is when you've forgiven everyone, there are no other voices inside that sphere of wholeness. There are no other voices in your head that you're arguing with or fighting with or proving things to or measuring up to or measuring down to. Unconditional forgiveness just lets go of those voices. They can go be their own wholeness over there. They're fine. You're still interacting with them through love. They're there. You're here. Your inner sphere of wholeness is a safe place to be because you're the only one in there, and you get to choose whether to judge yourself or not. And so when you do the forgiveness piece, there's no longer anything to judge. It's all fine. Your entire world becomes about curiosity and wow, now what? Now what? That's the big question. That's the juicy, rub your hands together, and now what? No limits. Choices. Beautiful explorations. Connections with other people who are also whole. They're over there. You've got no need to judge or meddle with theirs. They've got no access to yours because you're fine inside. You're not judging yourself. And there aren't any you've forgiven. There are no other voices in there that you're arguing with. That's freedom. That's amazing. It's an amazing place to be.